It started with a tremor, subtle at first, like the earth shifting in its sleep. But then it grew, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to crawl up through the bones of anyone standing still. People paused, glanced at each other uneasily, but no one could have guessed what was coming. By the time the first fissures cracked open in the Nevada desert, the world was already too late to stop it. They came from below, not above. Humanity had spent centuries scanning the stars for signs of alien life, never suspecting it had been lying dormant beneath their feet all along. The beings, tall, angular forms of liquid metal and living stone, emerged in eerie silence. Their eyes glowed with a cold, calculating light, and their weapons defied understanding. The first strike was merciless. Las Vegas vanished in a single pulse of blinding energy, leaving behind only a glassy crater where neon lights and human laughter had once thrived. The attack spread like wildfire. Berlin, Rio de Janeiro, Johannesburg. Entire cities wiped off the map in minutes. Panic gripped the globe as governments scrambled to respond to an enemy that seemed untouchable. The president's address was broadcast from an undisclosed bunker, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting above ground. "We don't know what they want," he said grimly, "but humanity will not surrender without a fight." It sounded brave on paper, but bravery didn't stop plasma beams or whatever unholy energy these creatures wielded. The military struck back with everything it had. Jets screamed through the skies, tanks rolled out en masse, and soldiers took up arms across every continent. But nothing worked. Bullets disintegrated before they could land. Missiles veered off course as if repelled by some invisible force field. For every alien soldier destroyed, and there weren't many, entire battalions of humans were lost. That was when General Elias Ward entered the picture. Ward wasn't just a soldier. He was a survivor of wars most people only read about in history books. A tactician with a reputation for pulling off impossible victories. He understood one thing better than anyone else. Wars aren't won by strength alone. They're won by outthinking your enemy. And if there was one thing humans excelled at under pressure, it was adapting. They think they're untouchable, Ward growled during an emergency meeting with top military leaders and scientists. They've never faced an enemy like us before. An enemy who fights dirty. Ward's words hung in the air like a challenge. And in that moment, the room full of generals, scientists, and strategists seemed to collectively remember what humanity was capable of. For all their advanced technology and overwhelming power, these creatures had underestimated one simple truth. Humans didn't know when to quit. They had clawed their way to the top of the food chain on a planet that tried to kill them at every turn. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that scorched entire continents. And now they would survive this. The plan Ward proposed was audacious, borderline suicidal, but it was the only option left. The aliens weren't just attacking from below. They were drawing power from the Earth itself. Satellite scans and seismic readings confirmed it. Their technology was tapping into geothermal energy on a scale that defied comprehension. If humanity could cut off that power source, it might level the playing field, or at least buy enough time to regroup. Operation Iron Veil was born out of desperation, but executed with precision. It was a global effort, uniting nations that had spent decades at odds with one another. Factories churned out experimental weaponry around the clock. Railguns capable of firing slugs at hypersonic speeds, drones equipped with electromagnetic pulse payloads, and exosuits that turned ordinary soldiers into walking tanks. Scientists worked alongside engineers to reverse engineer fragments of alien tech recovered from the battlefield, creating hybrid weapons that could punch through their seemingly impenetrable defenses. The mission itself would be led by Ward personally. He insisted on it, not out of arrogance, but because he knew what was at stake. If this fails, he told his team during a briefing in an underground command center, there won't be anyone left to try again. The descent into the Earth's depths began under cover of darkness. A convoy of armored vehicles rolled into the Nevada desert, carrying hundreds of soldiers outfitted with cutting-edge gear. The entrance to the alien tunnels, a jagged fissure in the ground that seemed to pulse with an unnatural light, loomed ahead like the gaping maw of some ancient beast. Ward stood at the head of his troops, his exosuit gleaming under the harsh floodlights. He turned to address them one last time, before they entered the unknown. "Listen up," he barked, his voice carrying over the hum of machinery and the distant rumble of alien activity. "I'm not going to lie to you. This is going to be hell. But we're not just fighting for ourselves today. We're fighting for every city they've destroyed, every life they've taken. We're fighting for Earth itself. And I'll be damned if I let them take it without a fight." The soldiers responded with a roar of approval, their fear momentarily eclipsed by sheer determination. The tunnels were vast and labyrinthine, illuminated by bioluminescent crystals that pulsed in time with some unseen rhythm. The air was thick and humid, carrying an acrid tang that stung the nostrils. As they moved deeper into the alien domain, the walls seemed to close in around them, shifting subtly as if alive. The first ambush came without warning. Alien warriors materialized from the walls themselves, their liquid metal forms flowing out like mercury before solidifying into deadly shapes. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness as they opened fire, their weapons emitting a high-pitched whine that set teeth on edge. "Engage!" Ward shouted, raising his railgun and firing a round that tore through one of the creatures with a deafening crack. The battle was chaos incarnate. Soldiers ducked behind makeshift cover as alien projectiles scorched through rock and steel alike. Drones buzzed overhead, releasing EMP bursts that caused alien weapons to sputter and fail momentarily. Exosuited soldiers charged forward with enhanced speed and strength, wielding hybrid weapons that glowed with stolen alien energy. For every human casualty, and there were many, the aliens suffered as well. Ward's strategy was simple but effective. Hit them fast and hard before they could adapt. Humanity's unpredictability was its greatest weapon. Where the aliens relied on cold logic and precision, humans thrived on chaos. As they pushed deeper into the tunnels, resistance grew fiercer. The aliens seemed almost desperate now, throwing wave after wave of warriors at the advancing humans in an attempt to halt their progress. "They're scared," Ward muttered over the comms as he reloaded his railgun. "They know we're coming for their heart." That heart lay ahead, a massive crystalline structure embedded in a cavern so vast it defied comprehension. It pulsed with raw energy, casting eerie shadows across the walls as if alive. This was their power source, the lifeblood of their technology, and humanity's target. "Drones in position," came a voice over Ward's earpiece. "Good," he replied grimly. "EMP bursts first. Then we bring it down." The drones swarmed around the crystal like angry hornets, releasing electromagnetic pulses that disrupted its protective shields. Alien warriors fought desperately to defend it, but were overwhelmed by sheer numbers and firepower. "Charges are set," another voice called out as soldiers planted explosives at key structural points around the cavern. "Fall back," Ward ordered as he fired one last shot into an advancing alien soldier before retreating with his team. The explosion was cataclysmic. The crystal imploded in on itself before releasing a shockwave that rippled through the tunnels like an earthquake on steroids. Alien forces collapsed en masse as their technology failed them. Ships plummeted from skies above ground while weapons fizzled out mid-fire. Ward emerged from the tunnels hours later in a blinding daylight once more, a battered but victorious figure leading what remained of his troops back to safety. Humanity had struck at its enemy's heart and lived to tell about it. But Ward knew this wasn't over yet. They wanted war, he muttered under his breath as he surveyed what remained of Earth's scarred surface. "We'll show them what war really means." As the dust settled and the remnants of the alien power core smoldered deep beneath the Earth, Ward's mind turned to the question that had haunted him since the first attack. Why now? These creatures, these intruders, had emerged from the depths with a ferocity that suggested they weren't just invaders. They were reclaiming something. But what? And why had they waited until now to strike? The answers came in fragments, pieced together by scientists and historians working tirelessly in the aftermath of humanity's first real victory. The aliens weren't strangers to Earth. They were its oldest inhabitants. Long before humanity crawled out of caves and lit its first fires, they had ruled this planet. They were architects of wonders that defied human comprehension, their influence woven into the myths and legends of every ancient civilization. "They've been here for millennia," Dr. Elena Vasquez, a leading archaeologist, explained during a high-level briefing at the Pentagon. Her voice trembled with a mix of awe and terror as she presented her findings. They're not invaders, they're survivors. Refugees from an ancient war fought long before humans existed. Ward leaned forward, his scarred hands clasped tightly together. Survivors of what? Dr. Vasquez hesitated, then gestured to a holographic projection of ancient ruins. Egyptian pyramids, Mayan temples, and submerged structures off the coast of what was once Atlantis. We've always assumed these monuments were built by human hands, but there's evidence, clear evidence, that these beings were involved. The precision of the Great Pyramid's construction, the astronomical alignments of Mayan temples, even the technology hinted at in Atlantean myths, it all points to them. You're saying they helped us? Ward asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Yes, she replied, but not out of kindness. They used humanity as tools, guiding early civilizations to build structures that serve their purposes. Energy conduits, data storage nodes, even weapons disguised as monuments. The pyramids weren't tombs. They were machines. The room fell silent as her words sank in. Machines for what? Someone finally asked. To protect themselves, Vasquez said grimly. From something worse. Ward's jaw tightened. Worse than them? She nodded. The war that drove them underground wasn't just a civil conflict. It was an extinction event. Their enemies were annihilated, but so was most of their own kind. They retreated into the Earth's crust to survive, waiting for millennia while they rebuilt their strength. And now they think it's their turn again, Ward muttered. Dr. Vasquez shook her head. It's not that simple. Something must have changed, something that forced them to surface after all this time. That something became clear soon enough. As humanity sifted through the wreckage left behind by the alien forces, they uncovered fragments of data encoded in crystalline structures, bits and pieces of an ancient warning system designed to monitor seismic activity across the planet. The aliens hadn't chosen this moment to strike. They'd been forced into action by a catastrophic event deep within the Earth's core. Their power source destabilized, explained Dr. Raj Patel, a physicist brought in to analyze the data. The geothermal energy they've been harvesting for millennia is running dry. Or worse, it's becoming unstable. Ward frowned. You're saying their survival depends on controlling Earth's energy reserves? Exactly, Patel replied. And if we disrupt their systems any further, we could trigger a chain reaction that makes this planet uninhabitable for everyone. The room erupted into chaos as military leaders argued over what to do next. Some advocated for total eradication of the alien threat, while others warned against provoking a disaster that could doom humanity along with their enemies. Ward listened silently before raising his hand for quiet. We didn't start this war, he said evenly, his voice cutting through the noise like steel through flesh. But we're damn well going to finish it. His plan was simple but ruthless. Take the fight directly to the aliens' remaining strongholds and force them into surrender, or extinction if necessary. But as preparations began for what would undoubtedly be humanity's final stand, something unexpected happened. A message arrived. It wasn't transmitted through any known frequency or medium. Instead, it appeared simultaneously on every screen across the globe. Televisions, smartphones, computers, all displaying the same haunting image, an alien figure standing amidst a backdrop of swirling light. Its voice was calm but resonant, echoing in every language at once. We are not your enemy, it said. Ward stared at the screen in disbelief as murmurs filled the command center around him. You destroyed our cities, he growled under his breath. The aliens seemed to hear him despite speaking to billions at once. We acted out of necessity, it continued. Your species has awakened forces beyond your understanding. Forces that threaten not only us, but all life on this planet. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward hesitantly. They're talking about Atlantis, she whispered. Ward turned to her sharply. What about it? The legends say Atlantis wasn't destroyed by natural disaster. It was sunk deliberately, she explained hurriedly. The aliens must have done it, to stop whatever ancient weapon or energy source was buried there. Ward's mind raced as he pieced together what she was saying, and what it meant for humanity's future. If these creatures were telling the truth, and that was a big if, then Earth wasn't just a battleground. It was ground zero for an ancient conflict far larger than anyone had realized. And now humanity was caught in its crossfire. Ward clenched his fists as he stared at the alien figure on screen. They wanted war, he muttered under his breath again, but this time with less certainty than before. Because now it wasn't just about winning. It was about surviving something far worse than anything humanity had ever faced before. The alien's message lingered in the air like a storm cloud, its words echoing in the minds of billions. "We are not your enemy," it had said, but the ruins of Las Vegas, Berlin, and Rio told a different story. Humanity wasn't in the mood for forgiveness, and Ward least of all. Yet, as the days passed and the world's leaders debated their next move, something far darker began to stir on the surface, a human darkness. The fragile alliances that had held nations together during the alien invasion began to fray. The destruction of major cities had left power vacuums, and old grudges bubbled to the surface. The United States blamed China for withholding key intelligence on seismic activity before the aliens emerged. Russia accused NATO of sabotaging their defenses during critical battles. Across the globe, fingers pointed, accusations flew, and military forces began to mobilize, not against the aliens but against each other. Ward watched it all unfold with a growing sense of dread. He'd fought in enough wars to recognize the signs. Humanity was teetering on the edge of self-destruction. And this time, there wouldn't be a planet left to rebuild. In an emergency meeting at a secure military base in Colorado, Ward slammed his fist on the table, silencing a room full of bickering generals and politicians. "Are you people insane?" he roared. "We're about to start World War III while there's a goddamn alien army beneath our feet." "They're weakened," snapped General Harker, a hawkish figure with a penchant for escalation. "Their power core is gone. If we strike now, we can wipe them out before they regroup. And what happens when Beijing decides our strike is a cover for an attack on them?" Ward shot back. "Or when Moscow launches nukes because they think we're using this as an excuse to take Siberia. You think the aliens are dangerous? Wait until we start throwing nukes around." The room fell into an uneasy silence. It was then that Dr. Vasquez spoke up from her seat at the far end of the table. She looked pale, her eyes shadowed from sleepless nights spent poring over alien data fragments. "They're watching us," she said quietly. Ward turned to her sharply. "What do you mean?" She gestured to a screen displaying live satellite feeds from around the world. Strange energy signatures were appearing near major fault lines. California's San Andreas, Japan's Nankai Trough, even beneath Yellowstone's supervolcano. They positioned themselves near critical points in Earth's tectonic system, Vasquez explained. "If we go to war, if we detonate even one nuclear weapon, they'll destabilize those fault lines." Ward's stomach sank as he realized what she was saying. "They're holding the planet hostage." Vasquez nodded grimly. "If we destroy ourselves with nuclear war, they'll finish what's left by triggering global earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. They don't need to conquer us. They just need us to make the first move." The room erupted into chaos once more as everyone tried to process this new information. Ward leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The aliens weren't just fighting for survival. They were playing chess on a planetary scale, and humanity was still learning how to move its pawns. But then another thought struck him, a darker one. "What if they want us to fight?" he said aloud. The room quieted again as all eyes turned to him. "Think about it," Ward continued. "They've been here for millennia, hiding underground while we built civilizations on the surface. They didn't attack when we invented gunpowder or steam engines or airplanes. But now that we've got enough nukes to turn this planet into ash, that's when they decide to come out swinging." "You're saying this is all deliberate?" Vasquez asked hesitantly. Ward nodded grimly. "They've been waiting for us to reach this point, for our weapons to become powerful enough that one war could wipe us out completely. They don't need to conquer us if we do it for them." The implications were horrifying. Humanity wasn't just fighting an alien invasion. It was being manipulated into destroying itself. But not everyone in the room was convinced. "This is paranoia," General Harker snapped. "Even if they're trying to push us into war, so what? We can still win." "With what?" Ward shot back. "Nukes? You think they'll let us use them without turning this planet into molten slag?" Harker sneered, but said nothing further. Ward turned back to Vasquez and Patel, his voice quieter now, but no less urgent. We need leverage, something that forces them to negotiate on our terms instead of theirs. Patel hesitated before speaking up. There might be something, he said slowly. The data fragments we recovered. They mention an artifact buried beneath Atlantis. An artifact? Ward repeated. Patel nodded. It's described as a failsafe, a weapon powerful enough to end their war once and for all. And you think it's still down there? Vasquez asked skeptically. It has to be, Patel replied. If they'd recovered it themselves, they wouldn't be playing these games with us now. Ward felt a spark of hope flicker in his chest, but it was quickly tempered by reality. Atlantis is at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, he said flatly. How do you propose we get there without them noticing? Patel smiled faintly, a rare expression for him, and pulled up another holographic display. Blueprints for a prototype submersible equipped with alien-derived stealth technology. We've been busy, he said simply. Ward stared at the blueprints for a long moment before nodding decisively. Then let's get busier, he said, as preparations began for what would undoubtedly be humanity's most dangerous mission yet. A race against time to recover an ancient weapon that might not even exist. The world above continued its slow march toward chaos. And beneath it all, deep within their labyrinthine tunnels, the aliens waited patiently, waiting, knowing that their greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their power, but humanity's own capacity for self-destruction. The submersible, codenamed Leviathan, slipped into the Atlantic under the cover of night. It was a sleek, black dagger of a vessel, bristling with experimental tech reverse-engineered from alien fragments. Ward stood on the bridge, his exosuit gleaming faintly under the dim red lights. Around him, a hand-picked team of soldiers, scientists, and engineers worked in tense silence as the Leviathan descended into the crushing depths. Depth at 10,000 feet, came the voice of Lieutenant Harper, the ship's pilot. Pressure holding steady. Ward nodded but said nothing. His mind was focused on the mission ahead. Atlantis wasn't just a myth anymore. It was real, and it held humanity's last hope. If Patel's calculations were correct, the artifact buried there could level the playing field against the aliens. But if they were wrong, well, Ward wasn't planning on coming back empty-handed. The descent took hours, each moment stretching into an eternity as they plunged deeper into darkness. The ocean around them grew colder, blacker, until even the ship's powerful floodlights could barely pierce through the murk. And then suddenly it appeared, Atlantis. The ruins spread out before them like a ghostly city frozen in time. Towering spires jutted from the seabed, their surfaces encrusted with centuries of coral and sediment. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the walls, alien script that seemed to pulse in time with some unseen rhythm. Jesus, Harper whispered. It's beautiful. Focus, Ward snapped. We're not here to sightsee. The Leviathan maneuvered carefully through the ruins, its sensors scanning for any sign of the artifact. Patel sat hunched over a console, his fingers flying across the controls as he analyzed data streams. There, he said suddenly, pointing to a massive structure at the heart of the city. That's it. The central chamber. Ward nodded and turned to his team. Gear up, he ordered. We're going in. The boarding party suited up quickly, donning pressurized exosuits equipped with thrusters and weapons designed for underwater combat. As they exited the submersible and swam toward the central chamber, Ward couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. And then it happened. The water around them shimmered and shifted as alien figures emerged from the shadows. Dozens of them, their liquid metal bodies flowing like mercury as they moved with impossible grace through the depths. Contact, one of Ward's soldiers shouted. Engage, Ward barked. The fight was brutal and chaotic. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness as alien weapons discharged with deadly precision. Human soldiers returned fire with railguns and EMP grenades, their movements sluggish in the dense water, but no less determined. Ward fought like a man possessed, his exosuit amplifying his strength and speed as he tore through alien ranks with ruthless efficiency. But for every enemy they killed, more seemed to take their place. We're outnumbered, Harper shouted over comms. Keep pushing. Ward growled. We're almost there. Finally, they reached the central chamber, a massive dome carved from some kind of crystalline material that glowed faintly in the darkness. At its center stood a pedestal holding what could only be described as a weapon, a sphere of swirling energy encased in an intricate lattice of alien metal. "That's it," Patel cried over comms. "That's the artifact." Ward didn't hesitate. He grabbed hold of the sphere, feeling its power hum through his suit as he lifted it from its pedestal. And that's when everything went wrong. The chamber began to shake violently as alarms blared in an alien language none of them could understand. The walls pulsed with light, as if alive. And suddenly Ward realized what was happening. "They've rigged it," he shouted. "It's a trap." Before anyone could respond, an explosion rocked the chamber, sending shockwaves rippling through the water and throwing Ward off balance. He clutched the artifact tightly as debris rained down around him. "Fall back," he ordered over comms. "Everyone back to the sub." The retreat was chaotic and desperate as alien forces closed in around them. Soldiers fell one by one under relentless plasma fire, their bodies swallowed by darkness as they sank into the abyss. By some miracle, or sheer stubbornness, Ward and what remained of his team made it back to the Leviathan. The submersible's weapons fired wildly at pursuing enemies as it ascended rapidly towards safety. But even as they escaped Atlantis ruins, Ward knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Back on land, humanity's situation had grown even more dire. The looming threat of nuclear war had reached a boiling point. Nations were arming missiles while diplomats scrambled to prevent catastrophe. And now there was this, an artifact powerful enough to end wars, or start new ones, sitting in Ward's hands like Pandora's box waiting to be opened. As he stared at it in silence aboard the Leviathan, he couldn't help but wonder, had humanity just saved itself, or doomed itself completely? But there wasn't time for doubt, not yet. Because deep beneath Earth's surface, in tunnels that stretched farther than anyone could imagine, the aliens were regrouping for one final assault against a species that refused to die quietly. And this time, they weren't holding back anymore. The final battle unfolded beneath a sky streaked with fire and ash, a world teetering on the edge of chaos. With the artifact secured, General Ward returned to the surface, where humanity's largest military force in history had gathered for one last, desperate strike. The plan was bold, almost reckless, a coordinated assault on every known alien stronghold across the globe. This was not just a battle for survival, it was a battle for sovereignty. The artifact, now understood to be a weapon of mass disruption, was humanity's ace in the hole. Scientists had worked around the clock to unlock its secrets, discovering that it could emit pulses capable of neutralizing the aliens' energy fields and rendering their advanced technology inert. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had a weapon that could turn the tide. As dawn broke over the Nevada desert, jets screamed overhead, their contrails slashing through the sky like white scars. Armored divisions rolled across the sands, their treads grinding up clouds of dust. Soldiers stood in formation, their faces grim but determined. This was it, the moment they would take back their planet. The battle began with precision strikes. EMP drones swarmed alien positions, releasing bursts of electromagnetic energy that short-circuited their defenses. Railgun batteries fired in unison, their projectiles tearing through alien ranks with devastating force. On the ground, exosuited soldiers moved like an unstoppable tide, their hybrid weapons cutting down anything in their path. Ward led from the front, his exosuit battered but functional as he charged into the fray. He barked orders over comms, coordinating attacks with a precision that left no room for error. The aliens fought back with ferocity, but without their energy shields and advanced weaponry, they were vulnerable for the first time. In the heart of the chaos, Ward and his special operations team pushed toward the largest alien command center, a sprawling fortress buried beneath miles of desert rock. Their mission was simple but critical: deploy the artifact and sever the aliens' remaining power core. If they succeeded, it would cripple the invaders once and for all. The fighting grew fiercer as they neared their target. Alien warriors emerged from walls and shadows alike, their liquid metal bodies shimmering as they reformed into lethal shapes. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness as human soldiers fought tooth and nail, to hold their ground. "Keep pushing," Ward roared as he fired his railgun into an advancing alien squad. "We're almost there." Finally, they breached the command center's inner sanctum, a cavernous chamber pulsating with alien light. At its center stood a massive crystalline structure, their last power core, surrounded by conduits that hummed with raw energy. "Planet!" Ward shouted as his team moved into position. The artifact was placed at the core's base and activated with a single command. A blinding pulse of energy erupted from its surface, cascading through the alien infrastructure like wildfire. The conduits shattered one by one as their power source was severed. Across the battlefield, alien weapons fell silent. Their ships plummeted from the skies like broken toys, crashing into deserts and oceans alike. Their warriors froze mid-attack as their bodies collapsed into inert pools of liquid metal. Humanity's forces pressed their advantage relentlessly, driving what remained of the aliens back into their subterranean tunnels. By nightfall, it was over. The aliens had been defeated. But victory came at a staggering cost. Cities lay in ruins. Entire regions were uninhabitable. Millions had died in battles that spanned continents and oceans alike. Yet amidst the devastation, there was hope, a fragile but undeniable belief that humanity had earned its place as Earth's true sovereign. In an unprecedented summit held amidst the rubble of Geneva, representatives from every nation gathered to dictate terms of surrender to what remained of the alien forces. Leaderless and without their technological edge, the aliens had no choice but to comply. The terms were clear: all hostilities would cease immediately. Their remaining military infrastructure would be dismantled, and they would submit to human oversight moving forward. In exchange, humanity offered them a chance to coexist peacefully, a place on Earth under strict conditions. The aliens agreed. It was an extraordinary moment in history. Not only had humanity repelled an invasion from an ancient and advanced species, they had established dominion over them. Reconstruction began almost immediately. Efforts were made to rebuild cities and provide aid to those displaced by years of war. Scientists worked tirelessly alongside alien collaborators to integrate advanced technologies into human society. Fusion reactors that could power entire cities cleanly, medical advancements that eradicated diseases once thought incurable, even new methods of space exploration that promised to take humanity beyond its own solar system. For their part, many aliens chose to adapt rather than resist further. Stripped of their former power and purpose, they began sharing knowledge long hidden beneath Earth's crust, secrets of engineering, biology, and physics that propelled humanity into a new golden age. But trust did not come easily on either side. Ward himself remained wary until his last breath, a soldier who had seen too much blood spilled to believe in perfect peace. Yet even he couldn't deny what he saw: humans and aliens working side by side in laboratories, children playing games that blended both cultures, cities rising anew from ashes stronger than before. In time, humanity's victory became more than just a military triumph. It became a testament to resilience and unity in the face of extinction. For centuries afterward, people would tell stories about how Earth's greatest war ended not with annihilation but rebirth. How humans proved not only that they could survive, but that they could thrive against impossible odds. And deep beneath Earth's surface, where tunnels lay abandoned and silent, the remnants of an ancient civilization finally rested, knowing they had been bested by creatures far younger but infinitely more determined than themselves. Humanity stood sovereign at last, not just over Earth, but over its own destiny.